What up, y'all? This is Wreak Havoc, and welcome back to another edition of the Havoc Hour. A special edition today because I am going on some rants. This coronavirus and stuff got me acting up. We in the midst of another another week, another month of shutdown mania. Everything is locked down. Everybody's at home. Nobody can go outside. Coronavirus has got me twisted right now. So today, today I'm letting loose on some topics that I've been hitting. Y'all see, I got notes today. I got some heavy notes because these topics I'm about to touch on today are extensive. So this is gonna be a long one. I'm just treating everybody on my IG and on YouTube because I got some stuff to touch on. It's gonna get hot today, real hot. So before I jump into it, let me shout out to my man Curtis. You know what I'm saying, the Big Curtis Show. I did take a listen, do some dope content. You know what I'm saying. So y'all go check out the Big Curtis Show because he got back in a big way this week. You know what I'm saying. Always good to hear from my mans. You know what I'm saying. But shout out to him. Shout out to Curtis, my squad at Young Kings Wrestling, my boys over at Fight Hound, Pound for Pound. Y'all know who it is. So without further ado, I'm gonna jump right into it. I'm gonna start on a lighter note. I'm gonna start real lighthearted before I really unleash on some people today, cause this one's a little bit touchy, depending on your perspective. So I'm starting, of course, with John Jones. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you heard the news that John Jones was arrested for DWI. It's his fifth legal incident inside 10 years. And he's back in the news for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately. Here we go again. Uh, what's been disseminated so far is that he was driving under the influence. He had a license. He had a handgun on him in the car. There's some video footage from the arrest from the officer and everything like that. He was calm. He was cool, collected. He didn't, get loud and abusive or anything like that. Didn't have an issue. They did a sobriety test. He failed miserably, and they booked him. And I believe he's supposed to be taking a plea deal or something like that. But it's just another catastrophic down blow to someone who we all recognize as arguably the greatest of all time in the sport of MMA. Yet again, taking another shot in the foot. You know, this is obviously not the first time we've been here with John Jones. In fact, this is one of many times. I mean, there's a timeline to follow of just constantly year after year, something goes wrong. I mean, you go all the way back to the beginning, 2009, before he even won the championship, cited for unsafe passing in his car up in New York, and he hits another car, trying to make a turn. I don't think anyone was in the car with him in that incident, but that was just the first. 2011, cited for loss of traction as he was driving. His car got towed. Then 1 year later, after, now he's the champ. 2012, he crashes his Bentley into a pole. And he had two passengers with him. Two women, I believe. 2015 was the infamous hit and run incident where involving a pregnant woman. He fled the scene, and then he turned himself in later. He didn't face any jail time, but God was on his side, I guess. But he did get 18 months probation, and that's where the fines started and everything like that. And his image was starting to get real smeared going near the end of his first stint. Then a year later, he gets booked for violating probation. They cited him for drag racing. There was a video of him talking to the officer. He was very, very rude and belligerent with the officer, so that didn't help. And now you have this. Now this is 4 years after, but then in between you have all the suspensions, the positive drug tests, and just everything you can think of. Now, the reason I'm going in a more lighthearted tone with this particular rant is, you know, just because of what he said. If you got a hold of the video, the audio from the arrest when they did it, he was talking about how he was concerned about his family. He had some anxiety issues and things like that, and he almost started to kind of panicked a little bit. So basically, in a nutshell, what's going on with him mentally is a bigger concern with me than just John Jones screwed up again. He's out in the news for all the wrong reasons. Another DWI. You know, I think it's more important now to say, okay, the guy needs help. Like let's focus on that. His biggest rival, DC Daniel Cormier, spoke about the situation and said, "Listen, this is not my day to chastise or criticize or try to laugh at his doom yet again." He said, "Listen, that guy needs help. The UFC needs to step in and help him." If you go back to when their rivalry first started all those years ago, he said right off the jump, like, "Listen, this guy is not going to change just because he wins a championship or he does it clean and he passed all his tests and everything like that. The guy's not going to change until the people around him change." And I think that's important to notice. Like, if the people around him aren't saying, "John, you need help," then that's a problem. And we're going to keep on having these conversations, and these things are going to keep happening until he decides he needs help. Like, we're not talking about partying, wild, drug, cocaine John. We're talking about John that clearly has an issue with alcohol. He has a drinking problem. So somebody or multiple people need to sit him down and say, "Listen, man, you got to start putting the bottle down because this is a detriment to you. This is a detriment to your life. Forget career, forget legacy for a second. This is a detriment to your life." He's been thankful that all these DUIs and driving citations and stuff like that haven't resulted in something that could have really injured him. And so you take his career in the UFC out of it, you're talking about his health at the end of the day. And this is a massive detriment to it. So somebody needs to sit him down and say, "Listen, man, it's time for you to put it away. Like, you really got to get it together because at the end of the day, the man has a family, he has a wife, he has daughters, brothers, his parents, a big support system in his family that care about him. So, for the sake of them, get your stuff together, man. Seriously. This is the only time I'm going to be lighthearted and, less, a little toned down with it because, like I said, I feel in a way that this is more so disturbing than it is just problematic. Whereas, the times before that, it was like, "Yo, John, what the hell are you doing?" This time, there was something that you saw that just said, "Listen, this isn't okay. This needs some attention." So, best of luck. Godspeed to John Jones. But you need to recognize that you have a problem and you need to get help for it. Plain and simple. That's the best way I can put this, truthfully. Now, sticking with MMA, my next rantee would be, well, this one's kind of split. It's a little split between Kamaru Usman and Ali Abdelaziz, his manager. So I have a question. Just throwing it out there to Kamaru Usman. Do you want to fight Jorge Masvidal or do you not? Because you are really confusing me and you're confusing a lot of people in the MMA community. And here's what I'm talking about. When this all started, after he won the championship, beat Tyron Woodley, right around the same time, Masvidal was having a resurgence. He comes back and starches Darren Till, annihilates Ben Askren in 1 second. I don't care what nobody says. That knockout at 239 with Masvidal over Ben Askren, it was 1 second. The fight clock hadn't started yet. Stop saying it's a 5-second knockout. It's 1 second. Anyway, while he's off doing that and beating Nate Diaz for the BMF belt, meanwhile, Usman is back saying, "Listen, I'll fight anybody. Throw him in front of me. I don't care who it is. He's been saying this before he won the belt, before he beat Woodley. Throw anybody in front of me. I'll fight him. Let's go. So after Masvidal beat Diaz, everyone started saying, hey, how about Masvidal and Usman for the welterweight strap? First thing Usman says is, who? Who is it? Mind you, if you rewind the clock back to, I believe it was before he won the championship, he acknowledged everything that Masvidal had done. His extensive career, the wins that he's had before he even got to the UFC, because he had a career long before he stepped into the UFC. Masvidal's a bad man. Talked about his backyard fights and stuff like that. He was talking about that on radio, on TV, and everything like that. Now, all of a sudden, now that you're the champion and Masvidal is making highlight reels left and right, now all of a sudden it's who? So, fast forward, they were doing an event, I think ESPN was doing an event where, Usman showed up, he had a cast in his hand, and it was all over the media. It was the video of him getting into a little verbal altercation with Masvidal at the event. See, he keeps shouting out, do something, do something. That happens, but yet still, it's the simple, why should I fight him? What has he done? Oh, I'm thinking somebody like Leon Edwards or Tyron Woodley again. Now, mind you, Woodley obviously deserves his rematch because he never got one. And let's be honest, he was one of the more dominant welterweights as a champion or as just a fighter in general in the past decade. So why doesn't he get another shot at the title? But in that same vein, you can't just dismiss Masvidal as a challenger. But he's doing it time and time again. Now, in the midst of the Corona madness, he goes on Ariel Helwani's show and says, "Oh no, I'm sorry. No. He did an Instagram live and said, well, no, if the UFC wants me to fight Masvidal, I'll fight him. Sure, why wouldn't I want to fight him? What are you talking about, bro? Like what? You just said who? Like he was some kind of fucking owl or something like that. Every time somebody mentions Masvidal, you say who? Who? Now, all of a sudden, here we are now it's in April, but this was back in March. He's like, oh, sure, yeah, if the UFC wants to make that fight, I'll make that fight. I'll fight him, I'll fight anybody. Dude, make up your mind. And this is where Ali comes into it, because I think a lot of these tweets that get sent out where he's saying, oh, yeah, I'll fight him wherever he wants to fight. Let's go save this event, because everyone tried to save UFC 249. So he was one of the people jumping into the mix. Oh, yeah, let's save the card. Let's do me and Masvidal and everything like that. Listen, I have not had the pleasure to personally meet Ali. I've seen him on many occasions. Obviously, we were covering the PFL last season, so some of his fighters are in that promotion as well. I haven't got the chance to personally meet him. This is not any kind of slight on him as a person. I'm just talking about him, his demeanor, his situations, the stuff that he gets himself into. He got bad habits. Let's just leave it where it is. He has some bad habits, and he's constantly getting into some stuff for the wrong reasons. Perfect example. We were in Vegas for the PFL playoffs. Everyone's trying to focus on the fight, and we got to look back to see Ali apparently getting into some scuffle almost with Anthony Pettis because he wanted to slap his manager, Abe Cowell. You know what I'm saying? As a manager, that's not something you need to be negatively involving yourself in, but yet it happened. Don't even get me started on the numerous situations with every person that Khabib has fought so far, like Conor and stuff like that. That's just scratching the surface. So I don't know what his thing is about getting all this attention. I don't know why he does it. I can just tell you, listen, man, you are not doing your fighters any favors at all. And it's not a slight on him as a manager. I'm sure he's a phenomenal manager because guys still want to keep coming to him. But, with the good comes plenty of negative too because, again, there's constantly something that he's saying or doing, whether it's on behalf of his fighter or not. You gotta stop doing that, man. You gotta stop, seriously. And maybe people can't prove it, but I'm not the only person that says this. This man is clearly into his fighters' accounts and tweeting out stuff to try and stir up some issues and stuff like that. Bruh, stop it. Usman is one thing. He need to. I don't know what's up with him, that he's thinking on one track today and a different track tomorrow, but he need to get it together. But Ali, you need to stay in your lane, sir. You are a manager. You're not a fighter. You need to stay where you at. Make your fights. Get your guys booked. Get them paid. That's what your job is. You doing all this extra stuff and stirring the pot and everything like that, and slapping managers and get jawing with your guys' fighter, your opponents. Stop it, man. Seriously. Like, get your life, bro. For real. This is not even funny no more. Like, it's really getting annoying at this point. But that's just me. I'm just a spectator at the end of the day. But these are things I notice. So I'm just throwing that out there. So we all want to see Usman versus Masvidal. Make it happen. Book it. Outside of that, I could care less. And obviously his other fighter, Khabib, we're waiting to see him and Tony. News from yesterday is that the event they were supposed to fight, UFC 249, is officially shut down. It's over. It's suspended indefinitely, as well as any future UFC events at the moment. Dana White fought the good fight. He tried to put on this event come hell or high water. This man said he bought an island, like out of Mortal Kombat or something. He said he bought an island, and the fights are going to take place on the island, and they're going to broadcast on ESPN. I mean, he was full steam ahead. Like, nothing was going to shut them down. And apparently the executives and all the top people at Disney and ESPN said, listen, shut it down. We got too many concerns. It's not going to happen. We're not broadcasting it. You got to stop. So as of yesterday, UFC 249 and the events, any other events that were supposed to take place immediately after, they have been put on hold, and they will be suspending operations until further notice. And Dana, to his credit, he said financially he's going to take care of everyone that was supposed to fight. He's going to do his best to, financially make sure he takes care of his people. So, for as much things as, you can say on the negative side when it comes to Dana White, he's had a lot of comments over the years that make you look at him sideways. But you can't say that this guy doesn't care about putting on fights. You can't say that he doesn't care about, doing what's right by the people and by his fighters for the most part. But, it's unfortunate, the situation that we're in, the times we're in right now. But credit to the guy. He wanted to keep things going for the people. He wanted to keep the sport afloat while all this is going on. But like everybody else, he's on hold. They shut it down. So the sooner coronavirus gets out of here, the better. That's the overall message here. But moving right along, now we're going to turn up the heat a little bit. Going to NFL, going to football here. My next rantee is Mr. Jerry Jones. Those who don't know Jerry Jones, he's the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, the esteemed owner of the Dallas Cowboys. He is also the general manager of the Dallas Cowboys, and he does not hesitate to let anyone know that at all. There's very few names bigger in the world of the NFL. And one thing you can say about him, undisputed, he loves his Dallas Cowboys. Absolutely. Now, why would I be ranting about Jerry Jones? Well, funny you should ask. Because you see, Jerry Jones's Dallas Cowboys haven't been to a Super Bowl since the 90s. They have not contended for a Super Bowl in that time since then. They have not been to an NFC championship since the 90s. They've been to the playoffs now in just in the last, let's say the last decade. To be fair, they've been to the playoffs twice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's in the current regime they're in. In the last decade, they've been there about, let's say 4 or 5 times. Uh, they have not won in the playoffs. They wild cards. I don't think those really count. They're the throwaway game that are like right before the real playoffs start. So they've been to a divisional round, and they've lost. They haven't been to a conference championship in since the 90s. They haven't been to a Super Bowl since the 90s. And yet still, this man finds a way to put his team all over the headlines. It's as if, no matter what they do, because they've had some stinkers over the last few seasons. I mean, you're talking back-to-back 8-8 seasons. You've had a 1-15 season. Oh no, not 8-15. Nearly 1-15. I think it was 2-14 that year, coming off of 2015, I believe. You had that, the back-to-back 8-8 seasons, 7-9s. I mean, they haven't exactly had great seasons, but they're always in the news. And just to give you some context here, this past season was one of their better years. They didn't make the playoffs, but they seem to have a complete team that they're building around them. The last 2 seasons, they've been looking much improved, and they've made some interesting contributions. Zeke Elliott, he got a new contract, 6 years, $90 million last year. DeMarcus Lawrence got 5 years, $105 million. Jalen Smith got 5 years, $64 million. Amari Cooper recently got 5 years, $100 million. And we're going to touch about him later, because he's involved in another rant that I got. But more recently, they signed Aldon Smith. Aldon Smith, for those of you who don't know, plays defensive end. He's a pass rusher. He's been out of the league for about 4 years. He's got a deal. Now, I'm doing all of this to say that their quarterback, Dak Prescott, does not have a contract yet. I just listed off a number of contracts that have been shelled out. Big money passed out. But their quarterback, the centerpiece of the team, the guy that leads the team, does not have a new deal yet. Meanwhile, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, that's just to name a few. There's more out there. Trust that there's plenty more out there, but this is to name a few. They've all got some brand spanking new deals, some nice ones. Dak Prescott has not been paid. That's a problem. That's a problem, and that's a problem to me, because Dak Prescott's entering his 5th season. This man hasn't thrown for under 3,000 yards. Under the lowest season, the lowest total he had was 3,324 yards. That was in 2017. They made the playoffs that year. But if you're going down the list in each season, first year, 2016, 3,667. 23 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Next year, 3,324, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. 2018, 3,885 yards, 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 2019, last year, he was just short of 5,000 yards with 30 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Ladies and gentlemen, this man has not been in the news for anything negative. This man has not had any problems. He hasn't had so much as a fine from the NFL. What is the problem that he does not have a new contract? There's no excuse for this. And let me be clear, I'm not a Dallas Cowboys fan. I can't stand the Cowboys, being totally honest. This is just something that I find that I have an issue with. This guy has done all the right things. He's a leader on the team. He's improving every single year. He's got the Dallas Cowboys winning games. They've been to the playoffs since the man has joined 4 years ago. They've been to the playoffs twice already. And they've been beyond the wild card round. They've been into the divisional round. They just haven't gotten past that yet. And so you have a guy like that who is reliable. And oh, by the way, he hasn't missed any games with injury either. He's been an Iron Man so far in these almost 5 seasons. So he's reliable. He's trustworthy. He's a leader. He's available. Why hasn't he been paid? If this were Tony Romo, who played 14 years, and only 6 times in his career did he play a full 16-game season. Dak Prescott has done it every single season. If this were Tony Romo, he would have had his money already. He might have had $100 million because that's Jerry Jones' favorite son. He might have had $100 million banked by the 3rd season. But yet here Dak is in year 5, entering year 5. He don't have a deal yet. What's the problem? I need answers. I need answers, Sway. I need them right now. Because, like I said, I'm not a fan. But I can acknowledge Dak Prescott is a bad man. And there are plenty of teams that could use a quarterback with that talent. But you have him on your payroll, and he's happy in Dallas. And you got him weapons. You got him a defense. You got him, Zeke Elliott's right behind him. One of the best backs in the league. You got him Amari Cooper. Jason Witten came out of retirement for a couple years to try and get y'all the rest of the way. He's gone now, but, everything was in place. Your centerpiece is the most important part of the team, but he has not been secured yet. That's a problem. Because without Dak Prescott, where are you? Those numbers I just listed on there, that could have been for some other team. Who's to say that the Dallas Cowboys even go above 500 without him? But he doesn't have a new deal yet. That's an issue. Y'all got to fix that. Jerry, you slacking, brother. You really slacking. That's not cool. Like, I know he ain't Romo, but come on, man. And look, just to be clear, Romo had decent numbers, but he wasn't like Joe Montana or nothing like that. He was just decent. He was good when he was healthy, and that's the big point. That man, 6 seasons out of 14, he was upright for 16 games. Dak hasn't missed a game yet, and he's been hurt plenty of times, but never missed a game. He's following Eli's footsteps right now. An Iron Man on the season, but no deal. Y'all gotta fix that. For real. This ain't right. Especially with the way the NFC East is about to shape up right now. I'm telling you, Jerry, you got to get out of your bag, man. Real talk. So, staying with football, I'm moving on to another that is getting a lot of attention for the wrong reasons, like always. And I'm talking about Antonio Brown now. So, if you've been following this story for the better part of 2 years now, Antonio Brown is on track. Well, let me stop right there. Was on track to eclipse the record-setting numbers of Jerry Rice, the greatest receiver to ever step foot on a football field. He is no longer in the NFL today. And if you follow this whole story, it started in Pittsburgh. Because for whatever reason, a disconnect started between him and Ben Roethlisberger. Now, we all know that there is, some little carte blanche that Ben Roethlisberger gets away with that he shouldn't, but he does. And so that caused a bit of a rift. Now, Antonio didn't help the situation the way he was acting, but ultimately between that and contract disputes, he found his way out of Pittsburgh. It was real messy. He sat out for the last game, and they couldn't take it anymore. They traded him away to Oakland. He gets to Oakland. He gets a nice new deal. Everybody's happy. seemingly, and the world is a better place now. And not long after he got there, problems already started. He made a grievance about his helmet, which he had 7 years notice to get fixed. He didn't do it. Now he wants to make a complaint. Then there was the cryotherapy incident where he freeze burned his feet off nearly. And then he gets into a dispute with the GM Mike Mayock because they fined him for missing mandatory meetings and practices. So after all that happens, long story short, he finds his way out of Oakland too. He gets into a verbal dispute. He starts calling Mike Mayock out of his name. He's recording conversations with John Gruden and putting them in videos. They released him before the season even started. And then New England picked him up after game one. And now all of a sudden it seems like a master plan. He's in New England. He's got Tom Brady. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. Within one game of him being in New England, allegations come out that he sexually assaulted a woman. They told him, be quiet, don't say anything. Just like Oakland told him, be quiet, don't say. Oh, this is the best part too. This is the best part. If he had just shut up for 24 more hours in Oakland, he would have been guaranteed. I gotta find the number. I believe it was $21 million guaranteed in his contract. If he could have shut up for 24 hours, if he could have just kept his stuff together, 24 hours, you get $21 million guaranteed. He couldn't shut up. Because of that, they pulled that guaranteed money, and then he wanted to act like a little child and throw a tantrum, and that's what got him ousted from Oakland. But anywho, New England. Sexual assault allegations come up. New England tells him, shut up. Don't contact the girl. Keep your head down. We'll get through this. What does he do? Oh, let me shout the chick out on social media. Let me talk about how she a liar and no more white girls and all this other stuff. Let's just blow it all up, right? Oh, that's smart. Okay, so now we're gonna cut you. So New England cuts you, and when Bill Belichick cuts you, it's not looking good after that. I don't know if you noticed over the years, if you keep track of this type of stuff, but if Bill Belichick cuts you from a team, there's not much of a career for you after that. Plain and simple. So ever since that day, almost a little over a year now, back in September, said Antonio Brown has not played a single down. He hasn't gotten any offers officially. The most he got was a workout with the Saints a few months ago, just going into the playoffs, which was really just preliminary. They wanted to see if he could still play, and they wanted to see if he was still acting like a jackass. Well, the latter was still true because he impressed everyone. He caught everything that was thrown to him. He had a phenomenal workout, but he brought the entourage and all the noise, which they don't want. And I'm not even going to get into all of the Instagram posts between him and his baby mom and all these police situations, stuff like that. You just make a fool out of yourself even further. Now, bringing him up because now we're talking about him again since he was working out with Lamar Jackson and his cousin Marquise Brown. And all the speculation that he may be angling to get signed to the Ravens. Let me tell you something right now. I'm also not a Ravens fan. If you listen to the show, you know what I'm a fan of, so I'm not going to repeat myself. I said once I told you, then I'm not going to repeat it. So if you know what team I rock with, you know where I stand. So I'm not a Ravens fan, but I've always been fond of the Ravens as an organization because they have a culture that is second to few. I won't say none, but second to few. They don't play nonsense at all. Ozzie Newsome had the ship on lock when he was running their organization. So the Baltimore Ravens don't have time for nonsense. They never have. As far, when Ray Lewis was the leader of that team, you know what I'm saying, in that locker room, was making sure everything was copacetic. It was no joking. There was no playing around. You're not going to bring a guy like this who you cannot trust. I don't care how great he is on the field. He might be a game changer for the Ravens if they brought him in, but you cannot trust him in the locker room, outside the locker room. You can't trust him, period. And he hasn't shown that you can trust him. He did an interview with Josina Anderson. The man looked high during that interview. He sat up here talking about how now he feels like he owes the NFL an apology, and all these teammates and everything like that. If look that interview up, look it up. The ESPN Antonio Brown interview with Josina Anderson. Look that up. That man looked intoxicated. He looked impaired. He was either drugged up or he was high. I don't know what it was. It looked so embarrassing, and it further served to show that he can't be trusted at all, because either somebody told him, hey, this is what you need to say right now, and just go with that, or he just got high and thought, you know what, let me do this interview real quick because I'm trying to get back in the NFL. I think that might have been one of the last nails in the coffin as to why Drew Rosenhaus canned him, his agent. Because his agent was with him through all of this nonsense. He is no longer with him. He severed their relationship tie, and he didn't make a big deal out of it. It was quietly done because, and he is quoted in saying, and this is just what I've heard, he's gone out and said that I couldn't come to him and do this professionally because I can't trust that this man's not recording me. That he's not going to do me like he did John Gruden, recording my conversation and putting it in some music video or something like that to make it all dramatic and play it in his favor. You know, that's not how I do business. So he quietly dropped him as a client. Like, that's it. We're done. Because, once again, can't trust him. And if you can't trust him, then no NFL team should sign him. I don't care how desperate you are. I don't care how close you are to being a Super Bowl contender. You don't do it. And particularly for a guy like Lamar Jackson is the reigning MVP of the NFL season. They didn't get it done in the playoffs. They came up a little short against the Titans. Got you. But Lamar Jackson, his trajectory from where when he got drafted to now, is skyrocketed. I think the only player that really opposes to him in terms of talent and his potential is Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes is omnipotent. That kid is freaking beastly. You can't mess with Patrick Mahomes right now. You know what I'm saying? It's just not happening. Because he just won the Super Bowl from down 10 in, I think, the fourth quarter. That's a bad brother. But outside of that, Lamar Jackson is the guy. That's the guy you want on your team. And yeah, they need more weapons. They need some help for him. But is that worth it? No, it's not. It's really not. I don't care that, Antonio and Marquise are cousins, they family, they can work together and they can create a monster of passing attack for Lamar Jackson. I don't care. It's not worth it. It's really not. Because you're not about to stunt this young man's growth and be a distraction to him and a detriment to him when he is about to do something special. This man is reinventing the quarterback position. That's what he did all last season. No matter what you did, no matter what game plan you put together, you could not stop Lamar Jackson last season. And there is no question, I'll say it again, Antonio Brown makes that 10 times worse if you're trying to stop the Baltimore's offense. But it is not worth it for the sake of the development of your quarterback and just keep it, just the locker room. Because if he gets in there, who knows what else is going to start with anyone else. It's not worth it. I'm sorry. It's really not. So, to Antonio, you need to focus on getting yourself together. Forget about, trying to play in the NFL. You need to get your mind right. He has a few moments where it seemed like he was finally catching on that, hey, I damaged my image, let me fix that. But then he goes right back to the nonsense. It's like, either you're bipolar, you got CTE, something. You need to look into that, and you need to fix that. That should be your prime concern right now. Not the NFL, not playing for somebody. We don't even have sports right now. This is the perfect time for you to get your mind right. So stop trying to put these notions out there that you're gonna find a team, you're gonna get back in the NFL. Get back in your own head and get your stuff together. Get your head screwed on right. Cause I'm gonna tell you something. I'm not interested in seeing him implode another team. I'm really not. And thankfully, the teams that he's been to and screwed up on, they didn't fall too hard. I mean, Pittsburgh got hit with the injury bug, so there's no telling what they would have been. Oakland did better than expected. It didn't finish the way they wanted, but they did better than expected without Antonio Brown. And of course, the Patriots were in the playoffs, but it just they didn't have much help, so wasn't much to do. But no other team needs that type of cancer right now. And I'm not calling him a cancer. I'm just calling his actions, his persona, what he brings with him. All of that is the cancer. He himself, I don't think he's a bad person. He just needs to, a lot like John Jones, he needs to change his environment. He needs to change the people around him so that he can change himself. That's really what this comes down to. He has people enabling him. All these people that talking to him, with doing this rap stuff and, all this other nonsense on IG and stuff like that. He has the wrong circle around him. So that needs to change so that he can change. And then once he changes, then we'll discuss you getting back in the NFL, if that happens. But till then, shut the hell up. That's all I'm going to say about Antonio Brown. Now, this one is interesting. This next one. This is about Bill O'Brien. And actually, not just Bill O'Brien, but Bill O'Brien and Matt Patricia. Because it dawned on me that both of them have had some issues and relates to their players recently. Now, Bill O'Brien is the head coach of the Houston Texans. And if you follow football, you know about the news back in free agency a couple weeks ago. He traded away DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals. DeAndre, who I believe firmly is the best receiver in football because he doesn't drop. His production doesn't drop. He catches everything that's thrown to him, and he runs routes better than most. In fact, I don't think anyone runs routes better than him. Antonio Brown included. Yeah, I said it. He traded that man for a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick and David Johnson. I'm going to tell you right now, and most people agree with me, if you watch all the news and stuff like that, people say the same thing. That was not a football decision. That was a personal decision. Because whatever the relationship was between the two of them, it wasn't healthy. Bill O'Brien has always had a bit of a disconnect with DeAndre Hopkins. There's something about him, for whatever reason, he just doesn't like the guy. And if you know anything about him, Bill O'Brien is not shy. This is the same guy that we saw in 2011 while the Patriots were beating the hell out of the Redskins. He's yelling at Tom Brady on the sideline. Tom Brady, who is the greatest of all time at the quarterback position. So this is the coach that we're talking about right now that just cast out the best receiver, the best talent that you have on your team to another team for low value. You don't trade DeAndre Hopkins for anything less than a first-round pick, but he traded for a second and a fourth. That's madness. But, anywho, he did it. And so now you're forced to look at him through a new lens, because what is really your goal here? What do you think exactly is your like what I'm not understanding what exactly he thinks he's doing here, because he doesn't have a GM. He's acting as a GM as well. And this ties into Matt Patricia because I think there's a culture within New England, or that starts in New England, with these coaches. Because the other coach in the NFL who is the de facto GM is Bill Belichick. No one else does that. So Bill O'Brien has always felt, a step ahead of the curve. And so what he is doing in a sense, it seemed like it's trying to emulate Bill Belichick, and I'm here to tell you that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen with anybody. You don't just replicate what he's done. But he's sitting up here, trying to make all these adjustments and trying to do the same things that Belichick does and thinking that it's going to work for him. And that's just not how it works. You haven't had the kind of success as a head coach to even warrant that. And then, what's that? What's up, Fishy? This dude, man, where you been at? You been off the grid. I've been looking for you everywhere. Anyway. Yeah, so tying into Matt Patricia, he actually had a bit of a situation with one of his players that recently got traded. He's coach of the Detroit Lions. Darius Slay, their corner, was traded to Philly in free agency. And he came out and had some interesting comments about his former head coach because they had a game, and in the locker room, they were going over film, and he's quoted as saying that Matt Patricia told him he was covering somebody, and they were, I guess they were having a little friendly chat while they were playing. But Patricia told him in front of the entire locker room, everyone that was watching, to stop sucking this man's privates, basically. And that was one of the things, like he just took that and said, whoa, wait a minute. Who are you talking to like that? You don't, that, first off, you don't say that to another grown man, period. But, just, where does that come from? Like, why would you say that to him? First of all, Darius Slay is your best corner, number one. Number two, he's a guy that he stays out of trouble. He does the right things. He produces on the field. He's one of the better talents that you have on your team. A team that needs a new image, that needs to be rebuilt. Why would you put yourself in a position to alienate him like that? So he was looking for a trade. He got a trade. And now that he's out of Detroit, he dropped this bomb on him. Now, where I connect these two guys together, and I was saying before how Bill O'Brien, he truly didn't like DeAndre because, DeAndre had some similar stories. DeAndre at one point was compared to Aaron Hernandez by Bill O'Brien. Because DeAndre had a little situation with his baby mom and everything like that. And Bill O'Brien, for some reason, related it to Aaron Hernandez and his baby mom situations. That's not cool. Like, first off, if you know anything about Aaron Hernandez, that's disrespectful, highly disrespectful. And for him to do that to DeAndre of all people, another guy never has a problem, and again, best receiver in the league in my view. There's too much connection there. Like, what's going on in New England? What do they do in New England that make them think that they can go to the next team and start talking like this and acting like this? And so it makes me wonder, does this come from Belichick, or does it just come from the coaches themselves? Like, do they just have this culture in New England that the coaches say and do what they want? Mike Vrabel's another coach. We haven't heard nothing from him. We've heard all good things about Mike Vrabel because the Titans have been on a beam. They went all the way to the AFC Championship game this year, riding the coattails of Derrick Henry. They were phenomenal late down the stretch. So he might be, one of the few exemptions. But, these two guys, O'Brien and Patricia, I need to know, like, what's up with them? Because is there some things in New England's locker room that go on that just don't get discussed? Because this doesn't just come from the people. This doesn't just start because they're head coaches. Now, for something like this for it to be so similar between those two guys, this had to have started somewhere when they were together. They were together in 2011 because Patricia was the defensive coordinator as far back as 2007. So he and Bill O'Brien were in the same place at the same time. So it makes me wonder, what kind of culture is being spread around New England and how it's being disseminated amongst these coaches and stuff like that because uh, you know the Patriots are a house of cards no matter how you slice it. But you know I think one day somebody's gonna write a book or tell a give a documentary on what goes on behind the scenes of the Patriots because the thing about them is that we always hear about some kind of scandal that goes on, whether it's them cheating or Robert Kraft and some massage parlor or whatever. They're a closed organization. You don't hear them. You don't hear from them on the inside. They're not transparent. So whatever goes on behind those doors is a mystery. And I think this is kind of shedding some light on it, on what it's coming from. I this is just my opinion. I'm not basing this off any fact. I'm just putting two and two together here and kind of doing my own little brainstorm. But this right here is concerning in the sense that what goes on behind those doors, because this ain't just these people. This is too convenient for it to just be two guys who are just jerk offs to their players. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna get back to y'all about that. I'm gonna look more into this, but I'm just throwing it out there. This ain't something fishy going on around here. But anyway, my go to the day is definitely O'Brien for that trade. He did try to replace him because earlier he traded for Brandon Cooks. They gave up a second round pick to get him. I don't know what he thinks that's supposed to do. I mean, Brandon Cooks is a solid receiver, but that's not replacing DeAndre Hopkins. That gives you some more speed at the position, but for me, it's too little, too late. You already screwed up. Now, it's the pressure's on you. You better deliver this year. That's my message to Bill O'Brien if I'm the owner, because I don't care what you say. Brandon Cooks for DeAndre Hopkins, that ain't it, Chief. That ain't it at all. And this one here, this next one, this one's near and dear to me, because now I got to get on Rex Ryan. Obviously, again, if you know me and my team, I got a soft spot for Rex Ryan. But he said some things recently that made me look at him a little sideways. And I'm talking about his comments on ESPN about Amari Cooper. Now, Amari Cooper is the number one receiver for the Dallas Cowboys right now. As I said, he got paid 5 years, $100 million. And Rex had some comments to say about that. His comments were as follows. Cooper is the biggest disappearing act in the NFL. The bigger the moment gets, this guy is nowhere to be found. I wouldn't have paid this turd. Okay? So, Amari Cooper is the biggest disappearing act in the NFL, and he's a turd. Okay, so just in the interest of fairness, I'm gonna let you in on a little something here. I play fantasy football, right? I've been doing it with my boys for a few years now. I was fortunate enough to scoop up Amari Cooper right after he got traded to Dallas. I don't think I lost another game to the playoffs. This was mid-season. He was dishing out 30 pieces every game. So my question to you, sir, first question is, what games are you watching Amari Cooper in that you believe he's a disappearing act? I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he just catches everything out the air. But what makes him a disappearing act? I'm confused about this, because from what I've seen, he's been an improvement to Dallas. He has changed the dynamic in their offense. And it wasn't just Amari Cooper, but he also had something to say about his former quarterback. Check this out. Check this out. Um, they're talking about Bill Belichick, right? And who's gonna who's gonna do better now that they've separated? Belichick with whatever quarterback he goes with, or Tom Brady now that he's with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're talking about who's gonna do better. And so Rex Ryan says, here it is. Belichick is the greatest of all time. He's the best ever, right? He believes that Tom Brady made Belichick a success. He says, even though Bill Belichick is best of all time, he said, give him Geno Smith and let's see how many Super Bowls he would have won. I will remind you that when he was head coach of the New York Jets in 2013, he drafted Geno Smith. Yes, I know John Idzik was the general manager and they had a rift, an issue. He might not have been the quarterback he wanted, but you didn't have to start him. He started him. And I'm going to get into those numbers really quick. But long story short, Geno did not fare well in the New York Jets offense whatsoever. You were the head coach of the New York Jets offense. You were the head coach of the New York Jets, period. So you're going to diss a guy that was your quarterback, who you brought into the league, who you were responsible for maturing, and you're basically calling him garbage? I'm confused about. Wait a minute. So let's put this in perspective real quick here. Now, he was the head coach of the Jets from 2009 to 2014. We'll run this down for you real quick. In 2009, his offense ranked 17th. 2010, it was 13th for the next two seasons. Then in 2011, okay, that's decent. After that 2011 season, the last three seasons where he was head coach, the ranks as follows: 28, 29, 28. So, with that being said, Rex Ryan, I have this question to ask you now. What the hell do you know about offense? Because as it shows with these numbers, you are terrible. You don't know a damn thing about offense. This is abysmal. 28, 29, 28 for three seasons. He was fired after 2014. After he went, I think it was 4-12 or 6-10. I think it was 4-12. He went that year in 2014. After going the 28th ranked offense. So you who has your offense ranked at the bottom of the league, you are the person that's saying that Amari Cooper is a disappearing act and let's give Geno Smith to Belichick and see how he does winning Super Bowls. I'm sorry. Was Geno Smith not your quarterback in 2013 when you were ranked 29th? So the worst season that you had was when Geno Smith was your quarterback, but you're going to show him down in terms of Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick could turn him into a stud. You don't know that because you are not a sight from where Bill Belichick is as a coach. So why say that if you don't know? You're not an offensive coach. You're not an offensive-minded coach. You aren't in any kind of position to make him better. You have no idea what Geno Smith would be with Bill Belichick. As for Amari Cooper, I'm not even going to touch that. I'm really not. Because it's so idiotic and so asinine. I'm shocked that they didn't just kick him off the set after that. I'm really shocked. Because where do you get all? What the nerve of you to say that? You've never had a number one receiver on your team. You had Braylon Edwards, you had some Antonio Holmes, 2010, 2009. But I mean, are we watching different games? Amari Cooper changed the Dallas Cowboys' fortunes. They were middling midway through the season when he showed up. He shows up and they went on a tear. They didn't lose a game for several, I think it was a 5-6 game stretch. They were winning games. All because you had a guy now that could take the top off the offense for Dak Prescott. I'm confused as to what football you're watching that you think that this guy can't deliver. But even still, you are the last person to speak on it. the absolute last person to speak on anything it relates to offense, because at the end of the day, you're not it, bro. You are not an offensive minded coach. You are a defensive minded coach. You're a great defensive mind. Don't get me wrong. He is one of the best at defense, at coaching defense. But offensively, you might as well be retarded. I want to use no sensitive words on here, but he might as well be. Bro, you don't got no right whatsoever to open your mouth about any of these players. Geno Smith, yeah, he hasn't gotten a decent shake. He hasn't looked good at all. But you're the last person to talk about it because he was your guy. I'm just that just blew me away, man. There's a reason why Rex is never going to be a head coach again. If he does get another NFL job, he will be a defensive coordinator, and I think he would be a great asset to whatever team does decide to pick him up. But man, you will not ever be a head coach again. Not talking like this. You got to go, man. Jesus. They just let anybody on TV nowadays. Ugh. Well, before I wrap up, I have actually a bonus rant, and you might like this one, you might not, but I'm doing it anyway because this news came up this morning. I wasn't gonna do this, but I have a couple news stories that popped up this morning that made me want to do this. So my bonus rant is going to Mr. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the CEO of WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, and also the owner of the XFL, or at least the company that sponsored the XFL, whatever. Well, two things happened today of note. First and foremost, they released the Revival from their WWE contracts. Dash Wilder and Scott Dawson. Sorry, almost forgot their name. Scott. Yeah, Dash and Scott have been released, and they are free to sign wherever. First off, I'm happy for the Revival because they deserve better. And in the same vein, I'm disappointed because they should have been treated better. Because these are two guys, before they even got to the main roster, that were the best tag team in NXT. They had match of the year in 2016. They were the tag team of the year, same time. They were first two-time NXT tag team champions. And then, of course, they went on to Raw and SmackDown. They won the Raw tag titles twice, the SmackDown tag titles once. But both times when they were champ, they weren't treated like proper champions. They call themselves top guys for a reason. They're traditional. They're old school. They're cut in the same vein of those tag teams from the Golden Age. That's their style. But because Vince McMahon doesn't care about tag teams, they didn't get pushed properly. Every time they won a championship, immediately after they started losing, to the point where they lost the passion that they had to be there. They didn't want to be there for the last 2 years. They've been trying to get out the door. That should tell you something. I don't know what more needs to be said about needing to evolve with the times. And that's not even relates to tag team wrestling. It's just in general. Like, dude, you were sitting on a gold mine with some of this talent that you have here. And you just, because you don't like tag teams, you don't care about them, you let them flounder, you booked them to look like imbeciles, and now you don't have them anymore. Now you release them because they wanted to leave. And this is the first of one of many situations like that. I could go down the list. I mean, the Ascension, Enzo and Cass, AOP, I'll say they're still hanging on, because this whole thing that they got with, Seth and Buddy Murphy, that hopefully that turns into something. But I think they screwed up once they brought him up to the main roster. They didn't need to go up yet. Gallows and Anderson, the Bullet Club, the War Raiders. I don't call them the Viking Raiders. I call them the War Raiders because that's who they are. And American Alpha, like the list goes on and on and on. You just just looking at this from the scope of a guy that has talent to work with on his books, and you've wasted them. These guys, all of these guys I just mentioned, are either in singles runs right now. They are, in limbo in terms of what they're doing on TV, or they're gone. And that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be at all. That's wasted talent, and that's ridiculous. It really is. I talk more about all that when next time I get on Young Kings Wrestling with my boys TC and Malik. I'm gonna talk about that over there, but y'all go make sure y'all check that out too, Young Kings Wrestling, because them boys they know their stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's the realest wrestling podcast in the game right now. Y'all go listen to my boys. But yeah, I'm gonna get more into that next time I get on their show. But that's disappointing. But the other thing that happened today that made me want to bring this up, the XFL announced that they're shutting it down officially. They had to lay off nearly half of their staff, and there are no plans for them to return in 2021. Now, this is not the first time that the XFL has been put in a position of being compromised to the point where they might fold. The XFL originated back in, let's see, I believe it was 2001, if I'm correct. I think the first time that this all started, it was way back. I want to say it was in 2001. I want to say it was. Yeah, 2001. 2001. He brought it out as a way to compete with the NFL. It was, they had a different theme to it. It's the Extreme Football League. Players had their own nicknames on the back of their jerseys. It was more hard hitting, more cut in the vein of like shoot football, like backyard football almost. It lasted for all of a few months, and then they folded right away, and it was deemed a failure until 2018, where they announced that they would bring it back in 2020, and it was less extreme and more of just innovative. A lot of different play styles. Things like a double pass and different replay angles and things like that. It was just innovative, and it was different. A lot of guys that came out of college that didn't get drafted, they could go sign with the XFL and get more exposure and potentially try to continue their careers on into the NFL. It was a nice little go-between. But now, obviously, once again, Corona has caused an issue. So they are suspending their operations, and they will not be returning next year as it stands. Now, I'm just going to throw this number out here, and if you're standing up, you might want to sit down. Vince, he spent a lot of money getting this thing back up together. And to be exact, the cost for him, the hit that he took to get the XFL up and running again, was $375 million. Yeah, $375 million. That's how much of a hit he took in his pocket to get the XFL running again. Mind you, the guy's a billionaire. WWE runs year round. He's not exactly, stressed, but that's a lot of money still. $375 million. That's enough to give some people heart attacks, anxiety. And for him, that is kind of a hit, because even though he is a billionaire, I mean, still, 375, that's a chunk out of you. And he was adamant that this was going to be it. This was going to be the time that it worked out. Now, obviously this isn't something that is his fault. This is a worldwide situation, a pandemic that's happening. But now you're shutting it down, all your operations. And they said next year they won't be back. So we're not even talking about, okay, until this blows over. We're talking about next year we won't see this either. If everything gets back to normal, say by the end of the year, by summertime, by the fall, we still won't see XFL in 2021. So um, that being said, I think, in all honesty, you might just have to let this one go, Vince. You might need to let that go. Maybe try the bodybuilding league again. I don't know. Maybe try that. Football, I think you might just need to leave alone. And it sucks to say that because I like the idea of having a slight alternative, especially between the break time in the NFL from Super Bowl to preseason and training camp. I like that they have a little short window to kind of still give people football. I thought it was smart and it was a good idea. It was better this time around, but by the time you're ready to get up and running again, you might start losing money. If you're not going to be back in 2021, okay, so say 2022 you try to come back. By that point in time, the NFL will have gone around the season, provided we get back to football, God willing, by this season in September. That means NFL will have gone around again twice. That's billions more dollars that they're making, and that's no money that you're making for the XFL. So, is it worth it to even try after that? I don't know. I don't think so, man. So, it was a good run. It was a good idea, and nobody's gonna knock you for trying to give back, but maybe just stick to WWE. And again, maybe bodybuilding and stuff like that, like you tried in what was it, like the '90s or '80s when you tried to do that, ICO Pro. Maybe stick to that stuff. Leave football to the professionals. That's just me. But anywho, that's been my rant session. That was cathartic. Good to get off my chest. And of course, get some content to you guys. I know it's been a while. Unfortunately, I'm an essential worker. I work in the hospital, so they've been dragging me all through it for the last few weeks. So, it's been a wild break, but I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to give you guys some content to stew on and listen to. So, thanks for tuning in. All my listeners and followers, I appreciate all y'all. I appreciate the support. I will be bringing back to you as the week progresses. I'm going to keep trying to get this content out to you as quick as possible, you know what I'm saying? But, yeah, you guys stay with me, because, still trying to do my thing and trying to give you guys news as it comes and stuff like that, give my perspective and everything like that. And, you can also catch me, like I said, on my boys on Young Kings Wrestling. I do a lot of cameos with them because I love to talk my wrestling stuff like that. So, I'm out here. I'm out here as much as I possibly can. So, what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody that sticks around. I appreciate you guys. I will check you guys later. This has been the Havoc Hour. Peace out.